Okay, MBCFB said, best college football pod by far. There has been a lot of talk about Ohio State's $20 million roster. If you guys were the GMs of a college team, how would you budget your roster? Parentheses, can go by position group or whatever is easiest. Can break it down by percent of the budget, since I'm sure 20 million will be nothing by next year if we are paying guys like Carson Beck $4 million. I mean, can we assume Miami has more than a $20 million roster?
I think so.
A few teams have more than a $20 million roster.
Okay.
Texas did last year. Didn't Texas have
23? That's what
they were more than Ohio State, but the only thing that was referenced all season long was Ohio State's roster cost.
Well, that's because their athletic director said so.
Right.
When the AD was on record, talking about the $20 million roster, that led, reckless voices like us to be able to just, yeah, of course. Well, he said it. That's all I'm saying.
I can't wait until we get like a college football tab on Spot Track so we can track everybody's salaries.
That's what some people want.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
We should. I mean, that's what they do in the NFL. Well, but we're getting more like the NFL.
Then yell at this 19-year-old for dropping a pass for $3 million a year. Like, get your crap together, kid.
Why would anybody agree to that?
Well, the schools would, because they want to know what the market is. And if I was a player, I would too. I want to know. I don't want to guess. Like, that's why the NFL, it's very public. You get they like have an email that goes out that shows you exactly what everyone else is making in the whole league. So if you're a backup quarterback, you don't feel like, man, I'm getting ripped off, because you hear that somebody's making, twice what you are. You'd rather know exactly. Then you can go negotiate and have a better, opportunity to go in there with some information that says, this is what I'm worth. This is what the market says. Because it's like a dark market right now.
It's a good point.
Which is great for the players, I think. But I don't know if that's necessarily accurate, because I think a lot of players probably leave disgruntled with all these reports that I don't think are very accurate. Like, I don't think Carson Beck is making $4 million.
I mean, he could. I don't know that he 100% is.
It's like a Tom Brady, Giselle situation where Hannah's making so much that he could actually sacrifice some of his income because they're just together. They're billionaires now.
Or the other thing that I do, especially with some of these, is the NIL package could be up to $4 million.
I don't buy that crap, because that's what some people that make a living off that, and they build their whole entire existence off of valuations, which are complete guesses based on social media following.
I think just for the industry as a whole, to make sure less players are getting screwed by agents.
Right.
Like, having transparency would be a good thing.
Yes. Agreed.
All right, Tom, how would you break down?
I've got 20 million.
How would you break down your 20 million?
All right. 4 million is going to my quarterback, because he's the most important player on my team. And then I don't have exact percentages, but the majority of the rest of my money would be invested in my offensive and defensive lines and my secondary, and then maybe a receiver. Running backs and linebackers, I'd be pretty frugal with for the most part, unless they're truly special. So like an NFL team.
Yeah, I think you do this pretty NFL style, except your roster size is a lot bigger. I think I would put like 15% of my spending towards like guys, 50 through 105, right? It just, most of those dudes are never, ever going to play for you. And if they do, like, their impact is marginal, and they're exceedingly replaceable, to be honest. I think the $4 million for the quarterback, if you got $20 million to spend, is like not outrageous. That's only 20% of your roster spend.
Mm-hmm. Is that one quarterback or the quarterback?
No, I might split it up between like two. Like, maybe my starters. Yeah.
If you got a stud, it's going to cost you 20% of your roster cost. If you don't have a stud, you probably need to be sprinkling that money around for a couple guys who have tools you think maybe can hit. And that does happen. Like sometimes guys just like, oh wow, this guy's actually, pretty good. I think like in this $20 million hypothetical. So basically anybody you're spending $1 million or more on, they need to have like real NFL draft certainty if they're an upperclassman, or if they're an underclassman, like, or just straight out of high school. You need to have like obvious top half of the draft potential, because you need to be able to make your money back on the playing field on that investment. I think where some of these teams mess up is not even the $1 million guys so much, but I think like a lot of them are like they value the certainty a little bit too much. And they're like, okay, like this guy is a good player for us, he's a good fit for us, blah blah blah. Let's give him 700. And you run into like too many situations where guys are making 2%, 3% of your roster cost, and they're just not actually that good or that much of a difference maker. And you get trapped because your coaching staff is not willing to embrace the uncertainty of what else is in there, when in fact most of these dudes are a lot more replaceable than I think the staff thinks they are. And that's not to say that there's no value in familiarity, right? Like there certainly is, but I think there's a lot of overpay going on from the staff's like, hey, I know what I got, with the goal of like, hey, knowing what I got gets me like from being fired, which is, surviving is I think a lot of these staffs' number one goal. But yeah, I think it's 15 to 30% probably on a quarterback or quarterback room. If you're spending like more than $6 million on a $20 million budget on the QB room, that's probably too much.
Yes.
I think.
Unless you're in a G5 league.
Yeah, I mean, like if you had, like, would Miami spend 6 to keep Cam Ward another year? Absolutely. I think it'd be great money spent. But, then what does it do to the rest of your room?
It's interesting you use the $1 million cutoff, because I think I'm lower than that. I think that it's like, I think that college teams, as they're continuing to learn, make mistakes and make great investments, that even Tom, you mentioned a wide receiver. You hear about wide receiver rooms where you had to keep this guy. You pay him $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. You go into the portal, go find a couple of like 150, 200 guys that well outpace them in terms of production. Like I'm definitely going about this with $4 million to $5 million max on my quarterback room. I don't want to spend it on any one player.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have a couple guys, because you get a Tommy John, you get a busted knee or something else. Like then all of a sudden your season could be tanked, and good portion of your budget is right there. I'd be looking at wide receiver to just go try and get a lot of value pieces or retain the value pieces to be able to hopefully put together an offense. I would, like Tom said, defensive line, edge rusher, secondary, all day long. If I get somebody with like high end elite talent, I'd be willing to go well beyond my like position room thresholds for that. But I would, in many senses, follow the NFL model there, at least in terms of the positions that you're prioritizing, just because, man, a stud wide receiver who's commanding like 1.2 or like over $1 million. You might, at the college level, you might be able to get that production for fraction of that from being able to split that around a couple of players, all with talent.
Yeah, and to be clear, like the flaw with this question is you should not have a set formula for how you're going to spend your money. Like it should be flexible based on the player. Like I would pay my grad transfer quarterback with plenty of experience a lot more than I'm going to pay the 4-star incoming freshman. So it's just, you need to be flexible with what you're going to do based on your roster and your needs. But in general, I feel like 20% of your budget should be reserved for quarterback, and then you figure out the rest later.
I think you also kind of got to be willing to tank a little bit. Like understand, hey, this isn't, they don't, because everybody's always worried about getting fired, but baseball does this pretty well. It's like, hey, this ain't our year. Let's spend down this year and be willing to spend up next year. I'd be interested in like relatively, I mean, everybody's spending more this year than they were last year because house money, but relative to the field, like Ole Miss was clearly in a go for it type situation last year. Now, they've spent this offseason, certainly, but are they spending as much relative to everybody else? I would think probably not, because
saving it for diesel dart.
Well, yeah, exactly. Got to save it up. So that's something you need to be willing to do. I generally think that these teams probably spend too much on guys in the bottom half or the bottom 2/3 of their roster, and they probably underpay the difference makers.
What do you think? Like, just for,
is that because of depth? Is that their word? Are you talking backups? Or are you talking they just want a roster that's complete at every position?
I think they overvalue the depth. Yeah.
If we were to put recklessly, if we were to put numbers on that, is that like backup is getting 100?
I mean, I don't have a problem in a $20 million roster of a lot of your bottom half getting close to 100, right? But I think it's when you're throwing around quarter, you're throwing around 350, that kind of stuff, to player like 48. that can be tough in a 20 million. Like if you plug it into a spreadsheet, it adds up fast.
You're not able to keep somebody because you're paying that extra like couple $100,000 on the way down the line.
I'd be going to the bottom of my depth chart with like, I got a sweetheart deal for you guys. You ready? I'm going to pay your tuition.
It's called a scholarship.
I'm going to get you some books. I'm going to get you some rent money.
How
about that? How's that sound to you?
Stipend. Cost of attendance is out there.
Exactly.
I mean, Danny, did y'all have stipends?
No. We just got
paid.
scholarship. Just didn't have to pay for our books or food and all that. I was happy.
Danny was rolling around campus in a Maserati.
I wish.
When we were in college, they had stipends, right?
There might have been. We had a training table that we had all our meals provided. We had the card that you could go to the student union. You could eat there. I guess that could be considered some sort of stipend. But it wasn't like cash, or else I would have opted into that.
I feel like I
Danny
remember
just not
payday.
eating and taking all.
Now, was it legal payday or illegal payday? I don't remember, but I remember there being a payday that would always lead to a big night out. Like certain time of the
Pell
month.
Grant Day, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. There's something where like the spending money would hit, and then all of a sudden you knew where the girls were going to be.
I worked through college, so that was just Thursday. That was payday. That's all that was.
Oh shoot! What is that? Oh, I thought Seth's comment here in the chat at 10:01. Could we see a comment? Sorry, could we see the option make a comeback? With that, I'd assume it's much lower demand for option quarterbacks. Could get you a situation similar to the NFL teams having a quarterback on a rookie contract. In some ways, I think that's kind of what FSU's doing, right? Like Castellanos can't throw worth a damn relative to the other guys who are getting a lot of money on the market. Pavia is extremely valuable to Vandy, but as a thrower, there's a lot of offenses in which he doesn't really fit. So they probably make sure to keep him happy no matter what, because he's so valuable to them. But yeah, there may be a bit of a market inefficiency if your only competition for a player is other college teams, and you don't also have to do the whole thing where you're trying to keep that quarterback away from the NFL draft. Right? Like Castellanos won't play quarterback in the NFL. Pavia won't be a quarterback in the NFL. Some of these guys who are just strictly college-only quarterbacks, I think you have a better chance of retaining them and getting that extra fifth year at a value to you if they don't have like a legitimate NFL option. Hell, like Dylan Gabriel is going to get drafted and had a good day. Although I will say these ball speed numbers,
1,000 miles an hour. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I've seen Gabriel at a lot of these Nike things, and I've seen Joe Milton probably just over the years, like high school games and 7 on 10, 12 times. There's a 0% chance that Dylan Gabriel throws a harder ball than Joe Milton. Like zero. That's just
the burden of being a man, by the way, is sometimes your wife needs you to open a bottle for her live on air.
Hey, Lynn.
New contract, same strength.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
But you don't have a bottle opener guy in this new contract? What are you doing?
Look at that.
They did come out and clarify that is a different metric, different radar, whatever they use to determine the miles per hour. They clearly said, because everyone was like, this is stupid. Like, there's no chance Dylan Gabriel has a better
he's got
arm
a
than
stronger
Josh
arm
Allen
than Joe
and
Milton. Yeah, no, he's
12 miles an hour faster.
Right.
No, it was like it was air speed versus ball speed, and that's where the person who did the original tweet got like confused or didn't look it up.
So we're using TrackMan now, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, got it. I would make my backup quarterback basically an option quarterback. That would be my, I was talking about how much I would have in the room. At least one of my quarterbacks on my NIL budget would be the break glass in case of emergency. That's somebody that can just go out there and scoot. We're going to be running the option. Not my starter, but hopefully he'd be able to keep the offense going if we got an injury to whoever was my high-priced quarterback. Any other thoughts on the $20 million roster?
I just wonder what the actual number is going to be. Because don't forget, this is for all sports. And what is the collective going to juice? Like, are we going to have $40 million rosters? Is the question I have. Are we going to, that's where I'm curious how far this goes. Because I think 20 is just, it's just the baseline. It said you can spend as much and over as you want to.
Right.